The words hit Okon like a slap. He was walking home from the village square when he heard two men whisper behind him. They didn't know he heard, but he did, and the words cut deep. Okon had been married to Ekaette for 8 years. They had no child. In their village, people didn't say much to your face, but behind your back, they said everything. Ekaette, his wife, was kind, gentle like early morning rain. She always made sure his food was hot, his clothing clean, and his heart full. Yet, many looked at her like she was broken, just because she hadn't carried a child. That evening, as Okon stepped into their small home, he saw Ekaette sitting on a stool, peeling cassava. She looked up and smiled. "Welcome, my love," she said. He wanted to cry, not because he was angry at her, no, but because she didn't deserve the shame people tried to put on her. He walked to her, dropped his wrapper, and sat beside her. Without a word, he took another cassava and began peeling too. She looked at him, surprised. "You never do this," she said. "I want to." Then after a pause, he added, "Let them talk. Let the whole village shout. I didn't marry you for a child. I married you because you are my home." Ekaette blinked fast. Her hands stopped moving. Then the tears came, quiet but full. Outside, the world didn't change. People still whispered. But inside their small home, love was growing, stronger than before. Even in silence, their hearts spoke loud. We may not have a child, but we have each other. It was a hot afternoon when Auntie Chichi came. She didn't knock. She never did. She pushed open the wooden door and stepped into Okon and Ekaette's home like she owned the place. Ekaette quickly stood up from the mat where she was sewing. "Good afternoon, Auntie," she greeted politely. Auntie Chichi hissed. "Afternoon? You still have mouth to greet me? 8 years in a man's house and nothing to show for it. No child. Not even a miscarriage?" Ekaette swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. Okon wasn't home yet, and she didn't want trouble. Auntie Chichi dropped her wrapper bag on the bench. "I warned my nephew. I told him not to marry a woman from your family. Didn't your mother also struggle with childbearing? This is not new." Ekaette stood quietly, holding back tears. She had heard worse, but today it hurt more. "I've come with a solution," Auntie Chichi continued. "There's a girl from my husband's village, young, strong, and fertile. Her name is Furo. If Okon marries her, in 3 months he will have good news." Ekaette's eyes widened. "Marry another woman? Is it not better than you crying every month when your period comes? Or will love cook food for him in his old age?" Ekaette didn't speak. Her hands trembled. Just then, Okon walked in. He paused at the doorway, sensing the tension. "Ah, Okon," Auntie Chichi turned with fake sweetness. "Your wife and I are just talking. I brought a solution to your problem." Okon looked at Ekaette. She was silent, but her eyes were red. He turned slowly to Auntie Chichi. "Auntie," he said calmly, "my wife is not a problem, so we don't need your solution." Silence. Auntie Chichi's smile faded. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Okon said, standing beside Ekaette, "if you bring any other woman to this house, you will never step in here again." Ekaette burst into tears, but this time not from pain, from love, from being seen. Their trial was hard, but their love was harder. At the back of their small house was a room, quiet, unused and clean. Inside was a small wooden bed, hand-carved by Okonko himself. They built that room 3 years after their wedding. Hope filled it then. Ekaette would sweep it every Saturday. She dusted the bed, folded the tiny wrappers and laid out the baby clothes her mother gave her long ago. The room had no child, but it had dreams. That evening, after Auntie Chichi left, Ekaette stood by the doorway of the room. She hadn't entered it in months. The pain was too much, but tonight she walked in. She touched the small bed, sat on its edge, and sighed. Okon soon joined her. He leaned on the door frame, watching her in silence. "I used to come in here every day," she said softly. "Praying, hoping, talking to the air like I was already holding a baby. I know. I heard you singing lullabies when you thought I wasn't home." Ekaette smiled sadly. "I stopped. I felt foolish. People laugh at me, Okunko." He walked in, sat beside her and held her hand. "Let them laugh. One day they will clap for you." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you think God has forgotten us?" "No," he said. "I think he's just writing a different story for us. Maybe not the one we expected, but maybe it's still beautiful." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they were quiet, soft, like a healing rain. They sat there, in the quiet room, among folded wrappers and tiny clothes that still smelled like hope. And though the bed was empty, their hearts were full, with each other, with patience, and with love that refused to break.
Ekaette tied her wrapper tightly and carried her basket to the market. It was market day, and the air buzzed with noise, laughter, and the scent of fresh pepper. She walked slowly past the yam sellers, the fish women, and the noisy children chasing each other around. She greeted everyone politely, smiling even when her heart didn't feel like it. Then she reached Mama Uyai's stall, where she usually bought tomatoes and okra. "Ah, Ekaette," Mama Uyai beamed. "You're glowing today. This your husband must be taking good care of you." Ekaette laughed softly. "He is, Mama. He always does." But as Ekaette picked out tomatoes, Mama Uyai leaned closer and lowered her voice. "You know, I've been wondering, are you people still trying? It's been so long without a child. Time is going." Ekaette's hand froze over the tomatoes. "You're a good woman," Mama Uyai continued. "But sometimes love alone is not enough. You need a child to hold a man's heart." Ekaette swallowed and forced a smile. "Thank you, Mama. God's time is the best." She paid for her things and walked away quickly, blinking back tears. She wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of the same question, the same pity, the same pressure. As she reached home, Okon was waiting outside. He saw her face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing," she said, avoiding his eyes. But he gently took the basket from her and made her sit. "Tell me." She shook her head. "People think we are broken, that we are missing something. But I'm tired, Okon. Tired of being reminded that we don't have what others think we should have." Okon held her face in his hands and said, "You are not missing anything. You are everything I prayed for. If no child ever comes, I will still thank God for you every day." And in that moment, love shouted louder than pity ever could.
One quiet Sunday evening, just after the rain had stopped, a knock came at the door. It was soft, almost unsure. Okon and Ekaette looked at each other. Neither of them was expecting anyone. Okon stood up and opened the door slowly. In the doorway stood a girl, wet, shaking and barefoot. She looked no older than 17. "Please, I'm sorry to disturb you," she whispered. "My name is Emma. I have nowhere else to go." Ekaette quickly stood and went to her. "Come inside, child. You are soaked." They wrapped her in a dry cloth and gave her warm yam porridge. She ate in silence, eyes cast down. When she finished, Okon sat beside her and asked gently, "What happened?" She hesitated, then said, "My uncle's wife beat me again. She said I'm a curse, like my mother. I ran. I've been walking since morning. I didn't know where I was going, but something told me to stop here." Ekaette reached for her hand. "You are safe now." Tears rolled down Ima's cheeks. "Why are people so cruel?" Okon replied softly, "Because they don't understand pain, so they choose to give it instead of heal it." That night, Ima slept in the tiny room, the one with the small bed and the folded wrappers. Ekaette stood by the door for a long time watching her. "She looks like someone who needs to be loved," she said. "She looks like someone we were meant to find," Okon answered. The room once filled with silence was now breathing again, with a new life, a new story. And as Ekaette pulled the wrapper over Ima, her heart whispered something it hadn't felt in a long time.
Sunday came again. Ekaette wore her yellow wrapper with tiny blue flowers. Okon dressed in his simple white shirt and clean trousers. Ima, now brighter and stronger, wore the gown Ekaette had sewn for her from leftover fabric. As they walked into church, heads turned. Some smiled politely. Others whispered. A few stared. The girl was not their child, but she held Ekaette's hand like a daughter. After the service, while Okon spoke with the pastor, two women approached Ekaette outside. "Sister Kaete," one said with a forced smile, "we noticed the young girl. Is she a relative?" Ekaette smiled kindly. "No, she's someone God sent to us." The second woman raised her brow. "But you know how people talk. They'll say you have taken in another woman's child to cover your own barrenness." Ekaette's smile faded, but her voice stayed calm. "Let them talk. At least this time, they'll be talking about love." The women looked shocked. They weren't expecting such grace. Just then, Ima stepped beside Ekaette, holding tightly to her arm. Her eyes met the women's. She didn't say a word, but the way she stood, tall, proud, protected, said enough. Later that evening at home, Ima sat between Okon and Ekaette, reading a storybook. "I heard those women, they don't want you to love me." Ekaette stroked her hair. "Then it's a good thing we don't need their permission." "But I'm not your real child." Okon looked at her and replied gently, "Love makes a child real, not blood." Ima rested her head on Ekaette's lap and whispered, "Then I am real." That night, under the same roof, three hearts beat with quiet joy. Not the joy of perfection, but the joy of healing. It was a bright Tuesday morning when the letter arrived. A slim brown envelope, sealed with tape and dust from the city. It was addressed to Okon. He opened it slowly, with Ekaette and Ima standing beside him. As his eyes moved over the words, his face tightened with surprise. "What is it?" Ekaette asked, heart skipping. Okon looked up. "My uncle in Lagos, he passed away. He left me his small house and shop in Ajegule." Ekaette gasped softly. "That same uncle who never answered your letters?" "Yes," Okon nodded. "And he said in the letter, 'You may not have riches, but you've built a kind life. I trust it in your hands.'" They sat in silence, absorbing the meaning. "So, are we moving?" Ima asked carefully. Okon looked at Ekaette. She looked around the room that held years of joy and pain, and then at the girl who had become their daughter. She smiled. Wherever we are together, that place is home. They spent the next week packing. Neighbors came to help, some curious, some genuinely sad. The woman who was once mocked now had visitors blessing her journey. Before they left, Ekaette stood once more at the doorway of the little room with the tiny bed. She didn't cry this time. She smiled. It had served its purpose. As they boarded the bus, Emma sat in the middle, holding both their hands tightly. "Will they accept us in the city?" she asked. "They don't need to," Okon said. "We accept each other. That's enough." As the bus pulled away, leaving behind the village and its whispers, Ekaette leaned into her husband. Their story was changing, not ending. And through every turn, their love only grew louder.
The city was loud and fast. Tall buildings shadowed the streets and cars honked everywhere. Okon, Ekaette, and Emma felt small in this new place, but they held on to each other tightly. Their new home was small, a simple apartment above a busy market. Okon opened the small shop his uncle left him. Ekaette found work cleaning offices nearby. Emma enrolled in school, her eyes bright with hope. At first, life was hard. The city's noise made Ekaette miss the quiet nights of their village. People here didn't know their story, and sometimes they looked at Emma with suspicion. One afternoon, Ekaette sat by the window, watching the busy street. Tears welled in her eyes. "Okon, do you think we made the right choice?" Okon took her hand gently. "We did. Love brought us here, and love will carry us through." Weeks passed, and slowly their neighbors began to smile. Emma's kindness touched many hearts. Okon's hard work earned respect. Ekaette's warmth brightened the apartment. One evening, as the sun set orange behind the buildings, Ekaette looked at her family. She saw strength in their smiles and peace in their eyes. She whispered, "We may not have what others want, no children born from me, but our love made us whole." Okon nodded, pulling her close. Love is the greatest gift. It's not about what you have, but who you have. Emma smiled between them. "I'm proud to be your daughter." Their story was not about the things they lacked, but the love they gave each other. Love that grew stronger with every challenge. And that love, simple and true, was their greatest blessing.
Life in the city was slowly settling into a rhythm. Okon's shop was doing better, and Ekaette's job gave her small moments of peace. Yet, deep inside their hearts, a quiet hope kept growing, the hope of becoming parents. One evening, as they sat together after a long day, Ekaette whispered, "Okon, do you think maybe one day we will have a child of our own?" Okon smiled softly, squeezing her hand. "I believe love can bring miracles, Ekaette. We must never stop hoping." Days turned to weeks, and their prayers continued in silence. They visited doctors and tried everything they could, but nothing changed. Still, they refused to give up. Emma noticed their quiet sadness but never said a word. She knew their hearts were full of longing. Then one morning, Ekaette awoke with a strange feeling, a flutter of hope mixed with fear. She took a small test quietly and waited. When the line appeared, she couldn't believe her eyes. She called Okon immediately. "Okon, it's true, we're going to have a baby." Tears filled his eyes. God has heard us. That night, they sat close, dreaming of the little life growing inside Ekaette. After all the pain and waiting, hope was no longer just a word, it was real.
Ekaette's belly grew slowly, just like their hope. Every day was a mix of excitement and worry. She worried if the baby was safe, if the child would be healthy, if everything would be okay. Oko never left her side. He cooked, cleaned, and told her stories about the village and their family. This child will know love from the start, he promised. Friends and neighbors noticed the change in Ekaette's spirit. The woman who once held sadness in her eyes now glowed with a quiet joy. But the waiting was not easy. Each day felt like a lifetime. Ekaette sometimes cried quietly in the night, scared of losing the dream they fought so hard for. Okon held her close, whispering, "No matter what happens, we are already parents in our hearts. This child is loved." Ima helped too, talking to Ekaette's belly and telling the baby stories about the city, the village, and the love that surrounded them. As months passed, the hope grew stronger than the fear. They dreamed of the day they would hear the babies cry, see tiny fingers, and hold a new life in their arms. The day Ekaette went into labor was filled with nervous excitement. Okon held her hand tightly, his heart pounding like never before. They were about to meet the little one they had prayed for so long. At the hospital, Ekaette's strength surprised everyone. Okon whispered words of encouragement between each painful wave. "You are strong, my love. Our baby is coming." Hours passed like a long, slow river. Finally, a cry filled the room, small, clear, and full of life. Tears streamed down Ekaette's face as the nurse handed her the tiny bundle wrapped in soft cloth. Okon's eyes shone with pride and love. They looked at their baby, a beautiful girl with dark curls and bright eyes that seemed to hold the sun. "This is our miracle," Ekaette whispered, her voice shaking. Okon kissed her forehead and held the baby close. "We waited so long, but she's here now. Our family is complete." The pain and waiting faded away, replaced by the warm joy of new life. They were no longer just husband and wife, they were parents, wrapped in a love deeper than they ever imagined. Ima, watching from the side, smiled softly, feeling the happiness she had wished for them all along. Their journey wasn't over, but this moment was pure magic.
Bringing their baby home was a day filled with joy and nervousness. Ekaette and Okon had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, everything felt different, harder and more beautiful at the same time. The little girl, whom they named Amara, needed constant care. Ekaette stayed awake many nights, rocking her baby and singing soft songs. Okon worked extra hours but always made time to help. Some days were tiring. Amara cried for hours and Ekaette sometimes felt overwhelmed. But Okon never let her feel alone. "We are in this together," he reminded her with a gentle smile. Neighbors and friends came to visit, bringing food and advice. Their love and support made the tough days easier. Ima watched her parents with admiration. "You are stronger than I ever imagined," she told Ekaette. Ekaette smiled, wiping her tears. "Love gives us strength we didn't know we had." Every challenge made their family bond tighter. They learned patience, kindness, and the power of hope. Through sleepless nights and endless worries, their love grew even deeper. They were not just surviving, they were building a home full of laughter, warmth, and hope.
Years passed, and Amara grew into a happy, curious little girl. Ekaette and Okon watched her with hearts full of pride. Their journey had been long and filled with pain, but also with a love that never gave up. They remembered the hard days, the sadness, the waiting, the tears. but those moments made their joy even sweeter. One evening, as the family sat under the stars, Okon held Ekaette's hand and said, "We waited so long for Amara, but through everything, we learned something even more important than becoming parents." Ekaette nodded. That love is the strongest force. It keeps us going, even when things seem impossible. Emma smiled and whispered, "And that hope is never wasted. It's what gave us light in the darkest times." Their story was not just about having a child. It was about believing in each other, standing together through storms, and finding strength in love. To anyone listening, Ekaette and Okon's story teaches this. True love is patient and kind. It does not lose hope, even when life is hard. When you hold on to love and hope, miracles can happen. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, and comment on it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this. Thanks for watching. Do you think the lesson in this story still applies to our world today?